What happens when a night of vodka-fueled decisions leads to waking up in a billionaire's bed with bite marks you can't explain? Before we dive into this wild story, make sure you're subscribed to Afro-Korean Tales by Andrella and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest tales of love, drama, and unexpected romance. Now, drop a comment telling us where you're tuning in from and stick around until the end. Let's begin. The bass from the Buckhead nightclub still rattled in Sade's chest as she fumbled with her apartment keys at 3:30 in the morning. Her best friend Jasmine had orchestrated the most outrageous bachelorette party in recorded history, complete with fluorescent cocktails, a bucking bronco machine, and enough vodka to flood a small island. Sade kicked off her torturous heels and face-planted onto her sofa, still sporting the absurd bride-to-be tiara Jasmine had practically glued to her head. "Never doing that again," she moaned, pressing her fingers against her pounding temples. The entire room was doing somersaults, and she vaguely recalled climbing onto a speaker at some point. Or maybe it was the bar itself. The memories swirled together like paint in water. She peeled away her glittering dress, abandoning it in a shimmering puddle on the floor, and stumbled toward her bedroom wearing nothing but her underwear. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tomorrow she'd transform back into responsible Sade, the meticulous wedding coordinator who orchestrated other people's perfect days, while her own romantic life crashed and burned spectacularly. The cold sheets welcomed her overheated skin like an embrace. She burrowed into her pillow, muttering something about never trusting Jasmine's party planning skills again. Within moments, unconsciousness claimed her. But something felt off. Her mattress felt different, more solid. And since when did her pillow smell like cedar and spice instead of her usual jasmine fabric softener? Sade's eyes flew open to an unfamiliar ceiling, not her rental ceiling with its quirky patterns, but smooth, flawless white with embedded lighting that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. "What in the world?" she whispered, sitting up so rapidly the room spun dangerously. This wasn't her bedroom. This wasn't anywhere close to her bedroom. She found herself in an enormous space with wall-to-wall windows showcasing the Atlanta skyline, the city lights shimmering in the morning light like liquid gold. The bed beneath her could accommodate a small family, draped in sheets that felt like liquid silk against her skin. And she had company. A muscular arm rested across her waist attached to a man whose face was pressed into a pillow. Black hair, golden-toned skin, and shoulders that belonged in a martial arts film. Sade's heart thundered in her chest as fragments from the previous night tried to surface through the vodka haze. The nightclub, the VIP area, a man with eyes like midnight, and a smile that should carry a hazard warning. "Oh no, oh no, oh no," she chanted quietly, carefully sliding from his embrace. She needed to escape immediately before he woke and she had to confront whatever monumentally stupid thing she'd done. She spotted her dress crumpled near the door and tiptoed toward it, praying the stranger would stay asleep. Just as her fingers grabbed the sequined fabric, her phone vibrated loudly from somewhere in the room. The man stirred, mumbling something incomprehensible. Sade froze completely, dress clutched to her chest. Maybe if she remained perfectly motionless, he'd drift back to sleep. The universe had different plans. He rolled over, revealing a face that made her forget basic functions like breathing, sharp jawline, perfect stubble, and lips that triggered a flash of memory. Those lips on her throat, her shoulder, her... "Good morning," he said, gravelly with sleep. His eyes, those dangerous dark eyes, locked onto hers with an intensity that weakened her knees. "Leaving so soon?" Sade straightened, attempting to gather whatever dignity one could while standing nearly naked in a stranger's bedroom. "I'm not leaving soon. I'm leaving now. There's a distinction." His lips curved into a smile that absolutely wasn't fair at this ungodly hour. "Most people at least stay for coffee after marking me." "Marking you?" Sade's voice climbed an octave. "What are you talking about?" He sat up, the sheet falling to his waist, revealing abs that belonged in a fitness commercial. Sade firmly directed her eyes to his face, which was not much safer. He pointed to his shoulder, where a perfect set of teeth marks stood out against his golden skin. "Oh my God!" Sade's first hand flew to her mouth. "I bit you." "Quite enthusiastically," he confirmed, seeming far too amused by her mortification, though, to be fair, I reciprocated. Before Sade could process that statement, he pointed to her neck. She rushed to the mirror on the far wall and gasped. There, clear as day, on the curve where her neck met her shoulder, was a love bite. Not just any love bite. This was a masterpiece of possession, dark purple and impossible to hide. "You marked me?" She whirled around, dress forgotten. "Who does that?" He shrugged, completely unrepentant. "You asked me to. I was drunk." "So was I," he stood, and Sade discovered that whoever invented low-riding pajama pants deserved a Nobel Prize. "But not drunk enough to forget how you dragged me out of VIP, pushed me against a wall, and said—" He paused, his grin widening. "What was it again? Oh yes, I need you to make me forget every boring man I've ever dated." Heat flooded Sade's face. "That doesn't sound like something I'd say." "You also said my eyes looked like dark chocolate and asked if you could taste them." "Stop talking." Sade yanked her dress over her head, not caring that it was backwards. "This never happened." "Hard to pretend that when we're both marked up like teenagers." He stretched lazily, drawing her attention to those abs again. "I'm Gunwoo, by the way. Gunwoo Lee." "Sade," she replied automatically, then cursed herself for giving him her real name. And this was a mistake. "Ouch!" Gunwoo pressed a hand to his chest in mock hurt. "Here I thought we had something special. You did propose to me after all." Sade's blood turned to ice. "I did what?" "Proposed, right there in the middle of the dance floor. Said you looked like the kind of bad decision you wanted to make forever." His eyes danced with amusement. "You even got down on one knee. Security has the footage if you want a memento." "Please tell me you're joking about the proposal." "Completely serious, though you used a ring pop from the bar instead of a diamond." He moved closer, and Sade caught that cologne again. Cedar and something uniquely him that made her hormones stand at attention. "You were quite disappointed when I pointed out we'd need an actual license." Sade backed toward the door, her heel catching on something. She looked down to see her purse, its contents scattered across the marble floor. As she knelt to gather her belongings, she spotted something that made her stomach drop. A napkin with writing scrawled across it in her unmistakable messy handwriting. "Gunwoo Lee, future husband," followed by a series of hearts. "Oh, this just gets better," she muttered, shoving the evidence into her purse. "Lee," Gunwoo supplied helpfully, "in case you forgot my last name, too." The name tickled something in Sade's memory. Lee, where had she heard that before? She looked at him again, really looked. The penthouse apartment, the designer furniture, the casual arrogance of someone used to getting what they wanted. Oh my God! The realization hit her like a freight train. "You're Gunwoo Lee? As in Lee Holdings? As in the Korean businessman who owns half of Midtown Atlanta?" "Guilty, though last night you seemed more interested in my dance moves than my portfolio." Sade wanted to die. She wanted the marble floor to open up and swallow her whole. She'd propositioned a business mogul, bitten him, left her mark on one of the most eligible bachelors in Georgia like he was a chew toy. "I have to go." She clutched her purse like a lifeline. "Please forget this ever happened. I'll pay for the therapy if you need it." "Therapy?" Gunwoo laughed, a rich sound that did inappropriate things to her insides. "Sweetheart, last night was the most fun I've had in years. Why would I want to forget it?" "Because I'm nobody. I plan other people's weddings for a living. I drive a beat-up Honda. I buy my dresses from outlet malls. I'm not the kind of woman who ends up in penthouses with business moguls." Something shifted in Gunwoo's expression, the teasing glint replaced with genuine interest. "You plan weddings?" "Yes. Badly, apparently, since I can't even keep my own life together." "The woman who gave me the most creative proposal I've ever received plans weddings? That's either ironic or perfect. I haven't decided yet." I'll be leaving. Time to decide."
Thanks for the whatever this was. Let's never speak of it again.
She grabbed the door handle, relief flooding through her. Almost free, almost able to pretend this was just a vodka-induced nightmare. Sade. Something in his voice made her pause. She turned to find him holding up his phone, a contact screen displayed. "You put your number in my phone," he said, under future wife with about 17 heart emojis. Kill her now. Just strike her down with lightning and end the humiliation. "Delete it," she said weakly. "Counteroffer." He moved closer, and Sade found herself mesmerized by the way he walked, all predatory grace and confidence. "Have dinner with me." "Are you insane?" "Possibly. You did bite me pretty hard." He stopped just close enough that she could feel his body heat. "One dinner. Somewhere public. Clothes required. What's the worst that could happen?" "I could propose again." "I'll hide the ring pops." His smile turned softer, less practiced. "Look, Sade, I meet a lot of women who see dollar signs when they look at me. Last night, you didn't even know who I was, and you still chose me. Drunk you has excellent taste." Drunk me also thought it was a good idea to ride a mechanical bull in a dress. Which was spectacular, by the way. Sade groaned. "You saw that?" "Front row seat. You lasted 12 seconds. Fantastic." She needed to leave before she died of embarrassment. "Thanks for the recap of my humiliation." "Have dinner with me," he repeated. "Let me show you I'm more than just a bad decision with good abs." Sade knew she should say no. Every rational cell in her brain screamed that this would end badly. Business moguls didn't date wedding planners. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was a hangover-induced delusion. But the mark on her neck throbbed with heat, and she could still taste him on her lips. And maybe, just maybe, sober Sade needed to be a little more like drunk Sade. "This is a terrible idea," Sade said, her hand still on the door handle. "We have nothing in common. You probably eat imported delicacies for breakfast, while I consider cereal a food group." "Actually, I'm more of a kimchi and rice guy," Gunwoo countered. "See, we're already finding common ground." "You live in a penthouse. I live in a studio apartment with a radiator that sounds like it's summoning demons." "Character building." He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms in a way that did wonderful things to his biceps, not that Sade was noticing. "Character building." He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms in a way that did wonderful things to his biceps, not that Sade was noticing. "What else?" "You probably date supermodels and socialites. I once went out with a guy who collected vintage pizza boxes." "That's oddly specific and mildly concerning." Gunwoo's lips twitched. "I dated someone who insisted on bringing their taxidermied cat to restaurants, so really we've both suffered." Sade couldn't help but laugh. "A taxidermied cat?" "Mr. Whiskers had his own seat at the table and everything." He shuddered dramatically. The relationship didn't survive the third date. "I can't imagine why." She was smiling now, despite herself. "Did Mr. Whiskers at least have good table manners?" "Better than his owner, honestly." Gunwoo pushed off the wall, moving closer. "So, dinner?" The sensible part of Sade's brain, the part that balanced budgets and created wedding timelines and remembered to pay bills on time, screamed at her to run. But another part, a part that had been dormant for too long, whispered that maybe one dinner wouldn't hurt. "Fine," Sade said, her hand still on the door handle. "One dinner, but somewhere normal. No restaurants where they serve foam instead of food, or where the waiters judge you for using the wrong fork. Deal." His smile lit up his whole face, and Sade's traitorous heart skipped a beat. "How about tomorrow night, 8 o'clock? I have a wedding consultation until 7. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 8:30. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand. "What's your address?" Sade rattled off her address, then immediately regretted it. "If you show up in a limousine, I'm not coming out." "Noted. No limo." He typed something into his phone. "Regular car. Maybe I'll even drive myself." "You can drive? I assumed you had people for that."
I have many hidden talents. His eyes dropped to the bite mark on his shoulder, as you discovered last night. Heat flooded Sade's cheeks. We're not talking about last night. Last night was vodka's fault. Completely vodka's fault, he agreed solemnly. The vodka is also responsible for the text you sent me at 2 in the morning. What text? Sade fumbled for her phone, scrolling through her messages with growing horror. There it was, sent to a contact labeled Hot Midnight Eyes. Your smile should be illegal in all 50 states. I'm framing that one, Gunwoo said cheerfully. Maybe I'll put it in my office. You wouldn't. Try me. Sade shoved her phone into her purse. Mortification complete. I'm leaving now, and when I die of embarrassment, I'm haunting you. I'll leave out vodka for your ghost. He followed her to the door, still shirtless and entirely comfortable with the situation. Sade. She paused at the threshold. What? Wear your hair up tomorrow. His fingers ghosted over the mark on her neck, sending shivers down her spine. I like seeing my handiwork. In your dreams, Lee. But her voice came out breathier than intended, and they both knew she was affected. Oh, you'll definitely be in my dreams. He leaned against the doorframe, all casual arrogance and dangerous charm. Especially the biting part. Sade fled before she could do something stupid like kiss him again. She made it to the elevator, jabbing the button repeatedly as if that would make it arrive faster. Through the closing doors, she caught one last glimpse of Gunwoo, still watching her with that infuriating smile. The elevator ride down from the penthouse gave her too much time to think. What had she done? What was she doing? She didn't date business moguls. She dated accountants named Brad who thought taking her to the Cheesecake Factory was fancy. She dated guys who wore socks with sandals and thought fantasy football was a personality trait. She definitely didn't date men who looked like they stepped out of a cologne ad and lived in penthouses that probably cost more than she'd make in 10 lifetimes.
The lobby of his building was all marble and modern art, with a concierge who gave her a knowing look as she scurried past in her backwards dress and sex hair. Great. She was officially that girl. The walk of shame girl stumbling out of the rich guy's apartment on a Saturday morning. Outside, the Atlanta sun assaulted her retinas, making her hangover headache pulse with renewed vigor. She fumbled for her sunglasses, squinting at her phone to order an Uber. 15 minutes until pickup. 15 minutes to stand on this pristine midtown sidewalk, looking like last night's bad decisions, while morning joggers gave her judgmental looks. Her phone buzzed. A text from the contact she'd apparently renamed Sex God Gunwoo at some point during her vodka adventure. You left your earring. I'll bring it tomorrow. Sade touched her ears, discovering she was indeed missing one of her favorite hoops. Of course she was, because this morning wasn't humiliating enough without having to see him again to retrieve her jewelry. Another text popped up. For what it's worth, you're the most interesting thing to happen to my bed in years. That's because you date women who bring taxidermied cats to dinner, she typed back before she could stop herself. Fair point, though you did propose with a ring pop, so who's really winning here? Despite everything, Sade smiled. Her Uber pulled up and she dove into the back seat like it was a getaway car. Rough night? The driver asked, eyeing her through the rearview mirror. Something like that. Sade slumped against the seat, closing her eyes. Been there, honey. We've all been there. The drive to her apartment gave her 20 minutes to spiral into anxiety. She'd agreed to dinner with Gunwoo Lee, actual business mogul Gunwoo Lee, who apparently owned half of Atlanta's prime real estate and probably had his own Wikipedia page. What would they even talk about? She didn't speak wealthy. She didn't know anything about stock portfolios or yacht maintenance or whatever business moguls discussed over their gold-flaked dinners. Her phone rang just as the Uber pulled up to her building in East Atlanta. Jasmine's name flashed on the screen, accompanied by a photo of her making duck lips at the camera.
"You're alive!" Jasmine shrieked before Sade could even say hello. "I was starting to worry. You disappeared from the club last night with that walking sin in Armani. Please tell me you did dirty, dirty things to him." "I bit him," Sade admitted, climbing the stairs to her third-floor apartment, and apparently proposed to him with a ring pop. "That's my girl!" Jasmine's delighted laughter made Sade hold the phone away from her ear. "Was he worth it? Please say yes. That man looked like he could ruin you in the best way." "He's Gun-woo Lee," Sade fumbled with her keys, shouldering open her apartment door. "As in business mogul Gun-woo Lee." The line went silent for so long Sade checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "You're joking. You have to be joking." "I wish I was." Sade kicked off her heels and collapsed face first onto her bed. "I woke up in his penthouse with a hickey the size of Texas and no memory of how I got there." "Sade Marie King, you absolute legend!" Jasmine's voice pitched higher with excitement. "You banged Atlanta's most eligible bachelor, the same Gun-woo Lee who was on the cover of Forbes last month." "We have a date tomorrow night," Sade mumbled into her pillow. "What?" The shriek probably shattered windows 3 states over. "He asked you out after drunk you?" Apparently drunk me made quite an impression. Sade rolled over, staring at her water-stained ceiling. "What am I supposed to do? I can't date a business mogul. I don't even own a dress that doesn't have a clearance tag." "First of all, we're going shopping immediately. Second, you're going on this date because hot business moguls don't just fall into your lap every day. Well, apparently they fall into yours, but you know what I mean."
Jasmine, no backing out. You always play it safe. You date boring guys who think missionary with the lights off is adventurous. For once in your life, you did something wild, and the universe rewarded you with a man who looks like he was carved by horny angels. That's oddly specific. I'm oddly specific when I'm right. Jasmine's tone turned serious. Look, I know you're scared, but maybe drunk you knew something sober you doesn't. Maybe she knew you needed someone who'd shake up your perfectly planned little world. Sade touched the mark on her neck, remembering the heat of Gun-woo's mouth, the way he'd looked at her like she was something extraordinary instead of just another drunk girl in a club. What if I embarrass myself? Then you'll have a great story. But what if you don't? What if this is the start of something amazing? Since when are you the optimist? Since my best friend finally did something spontaneous and ended up with a business mogul's teeth marks on her neck. Jasmine paused. "Please tell me you took pictures." "I'm hanging up now. Shopping tomorrow at noon. Don't even think about backing out." Sade ended the call and dragged herself to the bathroom. The mirror revealed the full extent of her walk of shame glory, smeared makeup, tangled hair, and that damned hickey that no amount of concealer would hide. She looked like she'd been mauled by a very expensive vampire. Her phone buzzed with another text from Gun-woo. "Forgot to mention, I like Korean food. There's this little place in Virginia Highland that makes the best bibimbap outside of Seoul." "How do you know I like Korean food?" she typed back. "You told me right after you told me my eyes looked like sexy dark chocolate." Sade groaned. Drunk her had no filter and apparently no shame. "Please forget everything I said last night." "Not a chance. I'm keeping a running list. Current favorite, your face is so symmetrical it's stupid. I hate you." "You definitely didn't hate me last night. In fact, I have the bite marks to prove just how much you didn't hate me." Sade threw her phone onto the bed before she could type something else embarrassing. She needed a shower and coffee and possibly a time machine to go back and stop herself from drinking that 4th shot of vodka. Under the hot spray of her ancient showerhead, she tried to piece together fragments of the night. The club in Buckhead, Jasmine forcing shots on everyone, a VIP section with velvet ropes, dark eyes meeting hers across the dance floor.
The way he'd moved against her, all controlled power and barely restrained heat. Her hands in his hair, his mouth on her throat, the desperate need that had consumed her. No wonder she'd bitten him. The man probably inspired primal urges on nuns. By the time she emerged from the bathroom, her phone had accumulated several more messages. 3 from Jasmine with links to dresses, 1 from her mother asking why she hadn't called this week, and 2 more from Gunwoo. My shoulder is already bruising. I'll have to explain to my board of directors why I look like I was attacked by a small but enthusiastic shark. Worth it, though. Best proposal I've ever received. The ring pop really sold it. Sade found herself smiling despite her determination to be mortified. She typed back, "Tell them you were attacked by a wedding planner. Very dangerous creatures when provoked." What provokes a wedding planner? Bad centerpieces, Comic Sans on invitations, grooms who think navy and black are the same color. Note to self, avoid all of these things if I want to keep my other shoulder intact. Your shoulders are safe. I don't bite on second dates. She hit send before realizing what she'd implied, that there would be a second date, that she was already thinking beyond tomorrow night. Good to know, though I make no promises about my own teeth. Heat pooled low in her belly at the memory of his mouth on her skin. This was dangerous. He was dangerous. Everything about this situation screamed disaster in flashing neon letters. But maybe Jasmine was right. Maybe it was time to stop playing it safe.
Sade spent the rest of Saturday recovering from her hangover and trying not to obsess over every text exchange with Gunwoo. He had a surprising sense of humor for a business mogul, sending her memes about hangovers and a photo of his bruised shoulder with the caption, "I'm telling everyone I fought a tiny bear." Sunday arrived with Jasmine pounding on her door at 11:45, armed with coffee and determination. "We have exactly 6 hours to transform you from hungover disaster to mogul dating goddess," she announced, pushing past Sade into the apartment. "I've mapped out every store in a 5-mile radius that carries dresses suitable for dates with men who own penthouses." He hasn't mentioned owning multiple properties. Please, he's a business mogul in Atlanta. He definitely owns half the city. Jasmine dumped her purse on Sade's couch and handed her the coffee. "Drink. We have work to do." What followed was a whirlwind tour of Atlanta's shopping centers, Lenox Square, Phipps Plaza, and Atlantic Station, with Jasmine vetoing everything Sade naturally gravitated toward. "No," she said, yanking a sensible black dress from Sade's hands. "You're not going to a funeral. It's classic. It's boring. You need something that says, 'I'm sophisticated, but also I might bite you again if properly motivated.' That's a very specific message. You're a very specific kind of date." Jasmine held up a red dress that looked like it was held together by prayers and dental floss. "Try this." "I can't wear that. I'll need double-sided tape just to keep my boobs from escaping." Exactly. 3 hours and approximately 17,000 dresses later, they found it, a deep emerald wrap dress that hugged Sade's curves without looking like she was trying too hard. It was sophisticated enough for whatever restaurant Gunwoo had in mind, but still had a hint of danger in the way it revealed her legs when she walked. "Perfect," Jasmine declared. "He won't know what hit him." "The price tag might hit my credit card pretty hard," Sade muttered, but she bought it anyway, along with new shoes that Jasmine insisted were sex on stilettos, and lingerie that made Sade blush just looking at it. "I'm not planning on him seeing my underwear," Sade protested as Jasmine threw a lacy black set into their pile. "First of all, you already slept with him, so that ship has sailed. Second, it's not about him seeing it, it's about you knowing you're wearing it. Confidence. Sexy underwear equals sexy confidence." By the time they made it back to Sade's apartment, she was exhausted, overwhelmed, and starting to panic about the evening ahead. "What if he's boring?" she asked, hanging up the new dress like it was made of spun gold. "What if without vodka we have nothing to talk about? Then you'll eat free, expensive food and have a story to tell." Jasmine flopped onto Sade's bed, scrolling through her phone. "Oh my God, have you Googled him?" "No? Should I?"
Honey, Jasmine turned her phone around, revealing image after image of Gunwoo at various events, in a tux at a charity gala at the High Museum, laughing with other impossibly attractive people on what looked like Lake Lanier, shirtless on a beach in what looked like Jeju Island. The man is worth $2 billion. Sade's stomach dropped. $2 billion? With a B? With a capital B. He owns hotels, restaurants, half the real estate in Buckhead and Midtown. Jasmine kept scrolling. Oh, and apparently he's single because he broke up with a Korean actress 6 months ago. She sold their story to a tabloid, says he was emotionally unavailable and married to his work. Great, so I'm the rebound from a Korean actress. Sade sank onto the bed beside her friend. This is insane. What am I doing? You're going on a date with a hot guy who clearly likes you. Jasmine set her phone aside and grabbed Sade's hands. Stop overthinking. He asked you out after drunk you did God knows what to him. He's clearly interested. But why? He could date anyone. Maybe he's tired of dating anyone. Maybe he wants to date someone who bites you and proposes with candy jewelry. Jasmine squeezed her hands. Look, worst case scenario, you get a free meal and a story. Best case, you get to keep biting a business mogul. Sade laughed despite her anxiety. You make it sound so simple.
Because it is simple. You like him, he likes you. Everything else is just details. At 6:30, Jasmine left with strict instructions for Sade to text her everything. Sade stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the wrap dress for the 100th time. The emerald fabric brought out the richness of her skin tone, and the heels did make her legs look longer. She'd pulled her hair into a loose bun, leaving a few coils to frame her face, and yes, to show off the fading mark on her neck. Her phone buzzed at 8:20. Downstairs, no limo as requested, though I should warn you I'm wearing a suit. Hopefully that doesn't violate your normal restaurant requirements. Sade's nerves kicked into overdrive. This was happening. She was actually going on a date with Gunwoo Lee. She grabbed her purse, took one last look in the mirror, and headed downstairs. He was leaning against a sleek black Audi, and Sade's breath caught. The man should come with a warning label. His dark suit was perfectly tailored, emphasizing broad shoulders and narrow hips. He'd left the top button of his white shirt undone, giving him a casually elegant look that probably took zero effort. "Hi," she said brilliantly. His eyes swept over her slowly, appreciatively, lingering on her neck where his mark was still visible. "Hi yourself. You look beautiful. You clean up pretty well too. Very un-shark-like." He grinned, opening the passenger door for her. "I save the shark attacks for special occasions." The car smelled like leather and his cologne, and Sade tried not to think about how the last time she'd been surrounded by his scent, she'd been naked in his bed. "So," she said as he pulled into traffic, "Korean in Virginia Highland, unless you'd prefer something else. I know a great sushi place in Ponce City Market, or there's this southern spot that makes peach mojitos that could rival last night's vodka. Let's avoid anything vodka adjacent for a while." Sade fiddled with her purse strap. "Korean sounds perfect. Good, because I already bribed them to hide all the ring pops." Very funny. "I thought so." He glanced at her, his expression softening. "You nervous?" "Should I be?" "No, but you're doing that thing with your purse that you did last night right before you dragged me onto the dance floor." Sade stilled her hands. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." His voice dropped, sending shivers down her spine. The way you laughed when you missed the mechanical bull stirrup, the determined look on your face when you decided I was going home with you, the little sound you made when I— "Okay," Sade interrupted, her face burning. "We agreed not to talk about last night." "You agreed." I just nodded and filed it under things to bring up when Sade's trying to act professional. "I'm not trying to act anything," she protested. "No?" He stopped at a red light, turning to face her fully. "Then why do you keep touching your neck where I marked you?" Sade's hand froze halfway to her throat. She hadn't even realized she was doing it. "It's sensitive," she said defensively. "I remember." The light turned green, but the heat in his eyes lingered. "I remember exactly how sensitive."
This was going to be a long dinner. The restaurant turned out to be a tiny place tucked between a vintage clothing store and a bookshop on North Highland Avenue. No valet, no pretentious maitre d', just the warm glow of candles through the window and the scent of garlic and sesame oil. "This doesn't look like a mogul hangout," Sade said as he helped her from the car. "That's because it's not." He placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her inside. "The owner is an old friend from before the billions. She makes bulgogi that could make you weep. Plus, she owes me for introducing her to her husband, so we always get the good table." The interior was cozy and intimate, with exposed brick walls and mismatched chairs that somehow worked perfectly together. A petite Korean woman with kind eyes greeted them enthusiastically in rapid Korean, pulling Gunwoo into a hug before turning her attention to Sade.
"Beautiful!" she exclaimed in accented English, clasping Sade's hands warmly. "Gunwoo, where have you been hiding this treasure?" "Sade, meet Mrs. Park. Mrs. Park, this is Sade. Be nice or she might bite you too." Sade's mortification must have shown on her face because Mrs. Park laughed, a warm sound that filled the small space. "Ah, a biter. Good, good. This one's too pretty. Someone needs to keep him humble." She led them to a corner table, semi-private and lit by candlelight. As Sade settled into her chair, she noticed Gunwoo watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked once Mrs. Park bustled away to get drinks. "Nothing. You just look beautiful in candlelight." "Does that line usually work?" "I don't know. I've never used it before." He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You bring out new things in me, Sade King." "Like bite marks." "Among other things." His grin turned wicked, though if we're keeping score, I believe we're tied on that front. Sade touched her neck automatically, then caught herself. "We're not keeping score." "Shame. I'm very competitive." Mrs. Park returned with a bottle of soju and a basket of banchan that looked like heaven. "No menus tonight," she announced. "I cook, you eat, everyone's happy." "Mrs. Park likes to think she knows best," Gunwoo explained as the owner poured their drinks. "She's usually right." "Always right," Mrs. Park corrected, "especially about love. I knew the moment you walked in." She winked at Sade before heading back to the kitchen. "Sorry about her," Gunwoo said once they were alone. "She's incurably romantic, thinks every dinner here is the start of a great love story." "And is it the start of something?" Gunwoo's eyes met hers over the candlelight. "I hope so, despite the unique beginning." "Unique is one word for it." Sade took another sip of soju, letting the warmth spread through her. "So tell me, what does a business mogul do when he's not getting bitten by drunk wedding planners?" "The usual. Board meetings, acquisitions, disappointing my mother by not marrying someone suitable." He picked at the banchan, his movements casual but his eyes never leaving hers. "What does a wedding planner do when she's not proposing to strangers?" "Plans weddings, mediates family drama, talks brides out of choosing my humps for their first dance." "People actually choose that?" "You'd be surprised. Last month I had a groom who wanted to enter the reception on a zip line." "Did you let him?" "God, no. Can you imagine the insurance?" Sade shuddered. He settled for smoke machines and the Mission Impossible theme, still dramatic. "Weddings are all about controlled drama. My job is to make sure it stays controlled." She paused as Mrs. Park appeared with their first course, kimchi jjian that looked like art. "What about you? What made you go from Seoul to Atlanta?" "Bold of you to assume I started in Seoul. The perfect Korean and business skills suggest otherwise." Gunwoo laughed. "Caught. I grew up in Seoul, spent every free moment at the beach when we'd visit family here. My father wanted me to be a doctor. My mother wanted me to marry well and give her grandchildren. I wanted to surf professionally." "What changed?" "Reality." His expression turned thoughtful. "Turns out I was better at reading market waves than ocean ones. Started with a small investment in a property near Piedmont Park, turned it into a chain, kept going from there. And now you own half of Atlanta." "Only the good half." He winked.
But enough about my empire. Tell me about drunk Sade's wedding planning skills. Does she have strong opinions about centerpieces? Drunk Sade has strong opinions about everything. Sade found herself relaxing, the soju and easy conversation melting her nervousness. She once told a bride that mason jars were overdone and she should consider fish bowls instead.
Did the bride listen? She did, actually. Had a beach theme, put betta fish in the centerpieces. Sade grinned at the memory. It was either brilliant or insane. Fine line between the two. Ganwoo raised his glass to brilliant insanity. Sade clinked her glass against his. To bad decisions that turn out okay. Just okay? Jury's still out. They fell into an easy rhythm, trading stories between courses of increasingly amazing food. Sade learned that Ganwoo spoke 4 languages, had a secret weakness for K-dramas, and once got lost in Busan for 6 hours because he was too proud to ask for directions. He learned that she'd planned her sister's wedding at 17, had a mild obsession with true crime podcasts, and could make origami cranes out of cocktail napkins, which she demonstrated with their napkins, much to his delight. "So," Sade said as Mrs. Park cleared their bulgogi plates, "what's the worst date you've ever been on, besides the taxidermied cat?" Technically, this might qualify. Sade's heart sank. Is this going badly? "No," he said quickly, reaching across the table to take her hand, "but you did bite me, propose to me, and then try to flee the state. As far as first date stories go, it's definitely the most interesting." "This isn't our first date," Sade pointed out. "Last night was Vodka's date. This is ours." His thumb traced circles on her palm, and Sade forgot how to breathe. "And for the record, it's going exceptionally well." Sade stared at their joined hands, his golden fingers intertwined with her darker ones. Such a simple touch, but it sent electricity shooting up her arm. "You know this is crazy, right? You and me?" "Why?" "Because you're you and I'm me. You fly private jets, I clip coupons. You date actresses, I date guys who think the Cheesecake Factory is fancy." "First of all, Cheesecake Factory portions are generous." Ganwoo squeezed her hand. "Second, you keep bringing up what you think are obstacles, but all I hear are reasons why you're refreshing. Do you know how boring it is to date someone who's never been grocery shopping, who thinks manual labor is pressing the elevator button?" "So I'm your poverty tourism?" His eyes flashed. "No, you're the first real person I've met in years. You looked at me last night, really looked at me, and saw something worth biting. Not my bank account, not my connections, just me. To be fair, drunk me has questionable judgment. Drunk me has excellent taste." He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "Sober you, however, keeps trying to talk herself out of something good." Sade's breath hitched. "This feels too fast," says the woman who proposed on the first date. "That doesn't count." "Everything counts." His expression turned serious. "Look, Sade, I know this is unconventional. I know we're from different worlds, but last night, before you knew who I was, you chose me. And this morning, even after you knew, some part of you still wanted to see where this goes. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here." He was right, and they both knew it. Sade could have ignored his texts, refused the date, gotten her earring back via courier. Instead, she was sitting in a candlelit restaurant wearing her sexiest dress, letting him trace patterns on her hand like they'd been doing this for years. "I don't know how to date a mogul," she admitted. "Good thing you're not dating a mogul. You're dating Ganwoo, who happens to have money, but also burns eggs and can't figure out how to fold fitted sheets." "Nobody can fold fitted sheets. They're designed by the devil." "See? Common ground." He smiled, and Sade felt her defenses crumbling. "Stop overthinking. Just be here with me. Eat Mrs. Park's bingsu. Let me drive you home. Maybe bite me again if the mood strikes." "I'm not biting you in public." "Shame. Mrs. Park would probably give us free dessert." As if summoned, Mrs. Park appeared with 2 bowls of bingsu that looked like clouds dusted with red bean and mochi. "For the lovers," she announced with a wink. "We're not," Sade started. "Thank you, Mrs. Park," Gunwoo interrupted smoothly. "It looks perfect." Mrs. Park beamed and bustled away, but not before getting them both a knowing look that made Sade blush. "She's going to plan our wedding, isn't she?" Sade said, taking a bite of the dessert. The flavors exploded on her tongue, sweet, cold, and perfectly balanced. "Probably. She's been trying to marry me off for years." Gunwoo watched her enjoy the bingsu with an intensity that made her self-conscious. "You have cream on your lip." Sade reached for her napkin, but he stopped her. "Let me." He leaned across the small table, his thumb gently brushing the corner of her mouth. The touch was innocent enough, but the heat in his eyes was anything but. Sade's breathing went shallow as his thumb lingered, tracing the curve of her bottom lip. "There," he said softly, his voice rough. "All clean." Sade couldn't form words. Every nerve ending in her body was focused on where he'd touched her, remembering other places those fingers had been. The mark on her neck throbbed in response. "We should go," she managed. "Already? But Mrs. Park will be heartbroken if we don't have tea." "I don't think I can handle tea right now." She was having enough trouble with the way he was looking at her, like he wanted to devour her right there in the restaurant. "Fair enough." He signaled for the check, which Mrs. Park refused to bring, insisting it was a gift for young love. They argued briefly in Korean before Gunwoo apparently won, slipping bills into Mrs. Park's apron pocket despite her protests. Outside, the Atlanta night was warm and humid, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine from a nearby garden. Sade expected Gunwoo to lead her to the car, but instead he caught her hand. "Walk with me for a bit? There's a park around the corner." She knew she should say no, should go home, put some distance between them, figure out what she was doing. Instead, she found herself nodding. The park was small but charming, with winding paths lit by old-fashioned street lamps. They walked in comfortable silence, hands linked like any normal couple out for an evening stroll. Except they weren't normal. They weren't even really a couple. They were 2 people who'd made questionable decisions under the influence of vodka and were now trying to make sense of the aftermath. "What are you thinking?" Gunwoo asked as they paused by a small fountain. "That this is surreal. 24 hours ago, I didn't even know you existed. Now I'm walking through a park holding your hand like we've been together for years." Time is relative. He tugged her closer until she was standing between his legs as he perched on the fountain's edge. "Some people date for months and never connect. Others meet and know instantly." "Which are we?" "You tell me." His hands settled on her waist, thumbs brushing the silk of her dress. What did drunk Sade see that made her so sure? "She saw someone who needed to be bitten," Sade said, making him laugh. "And sober Sade, what does she see?" "Someone dangerous." She stepped closer, drawn by a force she couldn't name. "Someone who could make me forget all my carefully laid plans." "Would that be so bad?" His voice dropped to that low register that made her insides melt. "Plans are overrated," says the business mogul CEO. Says the man who threw out his 5-year plan the moment a beautiful woman proposed to him with candy jewelry. His hands tightened on her waist. "I haven't stopped thinking about you, Sade. About the way you laughed, the way you moved, the way you tasted." "Gunwoo."
"Tell me you haven't thought about it too." He pulled her closer until she was pressed against him, his face level with hers. "Tell me you don't remember." She couldn't, because she did remember. Flashes of skin against skin, his mouth on her throat, her nails digging into his shoulders, the desperate need that had consumed them both. "I remember," she whispered. "Good." He cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "Because I want to kiss you again, but this time I want you to remember all of it." Sade's heart hammered against her ribs. "Here? In public? Would you prefer my penthouse?" His smile was sin incarnate. "I can call the car." She should say no, should insist he take her home, should put the brakes on whatever this was before it spiraled completely out of control. Instead, she leaned down and kissed him. It was different from last night, slower, deeper, with none of the frantic urgency of vodka-fueled desire. This was deliberate, a choice made in perfect sobriety. His lips were soft but insistent, coaxing her mouth open so he could taste her properly. Sade's hands found his hair, messing up the perfect style as she angled his head for better access. He groaned against her mouth, the sound sending heat straight through her. His hand slid up her back, pulling her impossibly closer as he took control of the kiss, showing her exactly what that talented mouth could do when he was focused. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sade's lipstick was completely gone, and Gunwoo's hair looked like he'd been through a windstorm. "My place or yours?" he asked, roughly. Reality crashed back in. "I can't." "Can't or won't?" "Both. Neither." Sade stepped back, needing distance to think clearly. "This is moving too fast. You proposed on the first date. We left fast behind a while ago. Which is exactly why we need to slow down." I ran a hand through my hair, probably making it worse. "I like you, Gunwoo, more than I should, but I can't just jump into bed with you again because you kiss like that." "Like what?" "Like you're trying to ruin me for other men." His grin was pure male satisfaction. "Good. Not good. Dangerous." Sade fumbled for her purse, needing something to do with her hands before she reached for him again. "I should go home." "If that's what you want." He stood, somehow making the simple movement look like art. "But Sade, this isn't over." "I know," she said softly, because it wasn't. Whatever had started last night wasn't going away just because she wanted to be sensible. The drive to her apartment was quiet, charged with unspoken tension. Gunwoo kept one hand on the wheel and the other on the gear shift, close enough that Sade could have touched him, but far enough to respect her need for space. When he pulled up outside her building in East Atlanta, Sade expected him to try to convince her to change her mind. Instead, he turned to her with a soft smile. "Thank you for tonight." "For what? Being neurotic about everything?" "For giving this a chance." He reached over, tucking a coil of hair behind her ear. "Can I see you again?" "You still have my earring." "I meant besides the hostage jewelry exchange." Sade bit her lip, tasting him there still. "I have a wedding on Saturday, the Patel Morrison reception at the Historic Academy of Medicine, and I might need a +1, if you're interested in seeing what I do when I'm not biting strangers." His face lit up. "Are you asking me to be your date?" "Maybe, if you can handle bride drama and questionable DJ choices."
"I'll handle anything if it means seeing you again." He leaned over, pressing a soft kiss to her cheek. "Good night, Sade." She climbed out of the car on unsteady legs, very aware he was watching her walk to the door. Once safely inside her building, she leaned against the wall and touched her lips, still feeling the burn of his kiss. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gunwoo. "Already missing those teeth." Sade laughed, typing back. "Your shoulder will appreciate the break." "My shoulder can handle it. Saturday can't come fast enough." Sade climbed the stairs to her apartment, feeling like she was floating. The evening had been nothing like she'd expected. Better in some ways, scarier in others. Gunwoo wasn't what she'd assumed a business mogul would be. He was funny and self-deprecating, intense but playful. He made her laugh and then made her breath catch with just a look. Her phone rang as she unlocked her door. Jasmine. "Tell me everything," her best friend demanded without preamble. "Start with his car and end with whether you bit him again." "I didn't bite him," Sade said, kicking off her heels with a sigh of relief. "But I did kiss him in a public park like a teenager." "Progress!" "And I invited him to the Patel Morrison wedding as my +1. Jasmine's squeal nearly shattered Sade's eardrum. "You're bringing a mogul to work? Sade Marie King, I'm so proud I could cry." "It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal? You're introducing him to your professional world. That's huge."
Jasmine's voice turned sly. So why didn't you sleep with him again? Because I'm trying to be responsible. Responsible is overrated. When's the last time responsible got you a mogul? Sade collapsed on her bed, still in her dress. That's exactly why I need to be careful. This feels too much like a fairy tale, and we both know those aren't real. Maybe not, but good stories are. And honey, yours is already legendary. Drunk girl bites mogul, proposes with ring pop, tries to flee Georgia, and he still wants her. That's romance novel gold. My life is not a romance novel. It kind of is, though. Speaking of which, did he do the thing with his thumb again? What thing? You know, the thing where he traces little circles on your skin and your brain short circuits. Ugh, groan. How did you know about that? Because you told me in detail last night when I called to check on you. I don't remember that. You also don't remember FaceTiming me from his bathroom to show me his marble countertops, but that happened too. Sade sat bolt upright. I did what? Yeah, you were very impressed by his shower, said it had more jets than a plane. Please tell me you're joking. I have screenshots. Sade fell back on her bed, mortification complete. I'm never drinking again. Don't be dramatic. Your drunk self is iconic. She's who got you into this beautiful mess. Pause. So, Saturday, huh? The wedding from hell. It's not that bad. The bride changed her color scheme 3 times, the mothers-in-law hate each other, and the groom's ex is a bridesmaid. Which is exactly why you need backup. Sade stared at her ceiling, water stains and all. Think he can handle it? A man who handles billion-dollar deals can probably handle some wedding drama. Plus, everyone will be so distracted by your hot date, they might actually behave.
Or they'll be worse because they're trying to impress him. Either way, it'll be entertaining. Jasmine yawned. I need to sleep, but I expect hourly updates on Saturday. And wear that black dress with the slit. I can't wear that to work. You can if you're trying to make a mogul lose his mind, trust me. After Jasmine hung up, Sade finally changed out of her dress, hanging it carefully in her closet next to her work clothes. The contrast was stark, sensibly suits and professional dresses next to the one piece of clothing she'd bought specifically to catch a man's attention. Her phone buzzed with one final text from Gunwoo. Sweet dreams, Sade. Try not to bite any pillows. She laughed, typing back, no promises. They're very biteable. Now I'm jealous of pillows. This is what you've reduced me to. Sade plugged in her phone and curled up in bed, touching the fading mark on her neck. In less than 48 hours, her entire world had tilted on its axis. She should be terrified, should be building walls and making lists of why this would never work. Instead, she fell asleep smiling, dreaming of dark eyes and dangerous kisses. The week passed in a blur of work and increasingly flirty text exchanges. Gunwoo sent her photos from board meetings with captions like, would rather be getting bitten, and this spreadsheet has nothing on your bingsu face. Sade found herself checking her phone constantly, smiling at his messages like a lovesick teenager. Wednesday brought a delivery to her office, a small box with her missing earring and a note, returning the hostage as promised, though I'm keeping the bite mark, G. Her assistant, Marcus, peered over her shoulder. Who's G? No one, Sade said quickly, but her burning face gave her away. Oh my God, you're seeing someone. Marcus practically vibrated with excitement. Tell me everything. There's nothing to tell. That hickey you've been trying to hide all week says otherwise. Sade's hand flew to her neck where concealer had apparently failed to do its job. It looks like someone marked their territory. Good for them. Marcus grinned. Is he hot? Sade thought about Gunwoo's abs, his hands, that smile that made her forget her own name. He's acceptable. Your face says he's more than acceptable. What's his name? Gunwoo, she admitted, then immediately regretted it when Marcus grabbed his phone. Gunwoo what? I need to do a social media deep dive. It's best friend privilege.
Sade snatched his phone. No deep dives, no social media stalking. It's new and complicated, and I don't want to jinx it. Fine, but I want details eventually, and I better be invited to the wedding. Marcus waggled his eyebrows. You've been on one date, and he's already marking you up like you're his favorite possession. That man is gone for you. So when do I meet him? Saturday. He's coming to the Patel-Morrison wedding. Marcus's jaw dropped. You're bringing him to the wedding from hell? Are you trying to scare him off? He insisted, said he wanted to see me in my element. Your element is barely controlled chaos with a side of family drama. Exactly. If he survives Saturday, he can handle anything. Friday night found Sade in full wedding prep mode, surrounded by seating charts, vendor contracts, and an emergency kit that could stock a small hospital. Her phone rang, Gunwoo's name lighting up the screen. Shouldn't you be asleep? Big day tomorrow. Can't sleep, too busy having nightmares about the mother of the bride and mother of the groom getting into a fist fight over the centerpieces. Has that actually happened? Once. I had to separate them with a unity candle. Sade rubbed her eyes. Why are you awake? Board meeting ran late. Hostile takeover. Very dramatic. Nothing compared to wedding planning, I'm sure. At least in business, people pretend to be civilized. Can you hear his smile through the phone? You haven't been to enough board meetings. What should I wear tomorrow? A suit, but not too fancy. You can't upstage the groom. What if I can't help it? Natural magnetism and all. Then I'll have to bite you to put you in your place. Promise? His voice dropped to that dangerous register. Because I've been very good all week. No surprise visits, no inappropriate texts after midnight. I think I deserve a reward. Heat pooled in Sade's stomach. Your reward is getting to watch me wrangle drunk relatives and mediate passive-aggressive toast battles. Sounds thrilling. What time should I pick you up? I'll be at the venue by 10. Ceremony starts at 4. You can come whenever, but fair warning, if you show up early, I'll put you to work. I'm surprisingly good at manual labor. Can you tie bows? I can learn. Sade smiled, some of her anxiety easing. Then you're hired. See you tomorrow, Lee. Good night, King. Dream of me. In your dreams. Every night this week, he said softly, then hung up before she could respond. Sade stared at her phone, butterflies rioting in her stomach. Tomorrow would be interesting.
Saturday dawned bright and humid, typical Atlanta weather that would wreak havoc on hairstyles and makeup. Sade arrived at the historic Academy of Medicine at 9:30, armed with her emergency kit and enough caffeine to fuel a small army. The venue was stunning, all historic architecture and manicured gardens in the heart of Inman Park. It was also a powder keg waiting to explode. The bride, Priya, was already in tears over her missing dupatta. The groom, James, was hiding from his ex-girlfriend turned bridesmaid, and both mothers were engaged in a cold war over the placement of the gift table. Sade dove into crisis management mode, locating the missing dupatta in the groom's suite, don't ask, mediating between the mothers, compromise, 2 gift tables, and assigning Marcus to keep the ex away from the bar until after the ceremony. She was so focused on putting out fires that she didn't notice Gunwoo until he cleared his throat behind her. Put me to work, boss. Sade spun around and immediately regretted every life choice that had led to this moment. He looked unfairly good in a charcoal suit, the jacket discarded and sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that had no business being that attractive. "You're early," she managed. "You said you'd need help." He held up a bag. "I brought supplies. Marcus sent me a list." Sade peered into the bag. Bobby pins, safety pins, stain remover, antacids, and many bottles of champagne. "You brought emergency champagne?" "For the coordinator, not the guests. Marcus said you'd need it by noon." "Marcus is getting a raise." Sade grabbed the bag gratefully. Okay, first task. The programs are in boxes by the chapel entrance. They need to be fanned out on each chair, alternating the Hindi and English versions. On it. He started to leave, then turned back. You look beautiful, by the way. Very professional. Sade glanced down at her simple black dress, the one with the slit Jasmine had recommended, paired with comfortable heels. This is my blend into the background outfit. Trust me, you're not blending anywhere. His eyes lingered on the slit that showed a flash of leg when she moved. That dress is criminal. Go to your job before I find something heavier for you to lift. He grinned and headed off, leaving Sade trying to remember what she'd been doing before he scrambled her brain. The next 2 hours flew by in controlled chaos. True to his word, Gunwoo threw himself into whatever task she assigned, arranging programs, helping the florist with last-minute adjustments, even calming down a flower girl who decided she hated her dress. "You're good with kids," Sade observed, watching him convince little Aisha that her dress was actually a princess gown in disguise. "I have a niece, same age, same strong opinions about fashion." He stood, dusting off his knees. What's next? Before Sade could answer, a shrill voice cut through the air. Absolutely not! The programs were supposed to be ivory, not white. The mother of the bride had arrived. Sade plastered on her professional smile and intercepted Mrs. Patel before she could storm the chapel. "The programs are ivory, Mrs. Patel. The lighting in here just makes them appear brighter." "Don't gaslight me, young woman. I know white when I see it." Gunwoo stepped forward smoothly, placing his hand on Sade's lower back. "Mrs. Patel, these programs are absolutely perfect. The ivory shade you selected complements the gold embossing beautifully." Mrs. Patel beamed, crisis instantly forgotten. "Oh, well, yes, I did spend hours choosing the exact right shade." Sade shot him a grateful look as Mrs. Patel bustled away, satisfied. "My hero," she murmured. "Always," he replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Now go work your magic. I'll be right here when you need me." And he was, through every moment of the beautiful chaos, catching her eye during the vows, steadying her with a touch when things got hectic, celebrating with champagne when Priya and James finally kissed as husband and wife. As the reception wound down and the last guests departed under a canopy of stars, Sade finally let herself relax. She kicked off her heels and sat on the terrace steps, watching cleanup crews work their magic. "You did it," Gunwoo said, settling beside her. "Another perfect wedding." "We did it," she corrected, leaning into his warmth. "Couldn't have managed without my assistant." "Assistant? I prefer co-conspirator, or maybe future husband. That has a nice ring to it." Sade laughed, thinking of that first wild night. "Still got any ring pops?" "Actually," Gunwoo shifted, pulling something from his pocket. "I've been carrying this around all week, waiting for the right moment." It wasn't a ring pop. It was a simple silver band with a single pearl. Elegant, unique, perfect. "It's not an engagement ring," he said quickly. "Just a promise that this is real, that every day with you is better than the last." Sade stared at the ring, then at him, this beautiful, ridiculous man who'd turned her world upside down in the best way possible. "You're going to bite me again, right?" she said, tears pricking her eyes. "I'm counting on it," he grinned, sliding the ring onto her finger. "For the rest of our lives." She kissed him under the Atlanta stars, tasting forever on his lips. Somewhere in the distance, the city hummed on, witness to a love story that started with vodka and a bite and ended with a promise that this was just the beginning. What did you think of Sade and Gunwoo's story? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this tale of unexpected love, don't forget to subscribe to Afro-Korean Tales by Andrella and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Give this video a thumbs up if you're Team Gunwoo and Sade, and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the suggested videos. Until next time, keep believing in love that bites back in the best way possible.